Hello, future teachers. Welcome back to the Tower Languages TKT course. I'm glad you're here and ready to continue improving your teaching skills. In today's lesson, we're going to explore one of the key topics from Cambridge TKT Module 2, Units 20 and 21. By the end of this lesson, you'll understand the essential concepts, see practical classroom examples, become a more confident English teacher, and be better prepared for the TKT exam. So, let's get started.
Before we begin, remember that today's topic is literally the foundation of effective lesson planning. Grasping how to properly structure your classes is going to save you hours of prep time, keep your students super engaged, and ensure that real learning actually happens in your classroom.
Okay, let's jump right in. Think of lesson planning a bit like building with Lego bricks. Unit 20 is all about the components. It's about gathering, defining, and really understanding your individual building blocks. You've got to know exactly what raw materials you're working with, right? Then, Unit 21 is the assembly. That's where we take all those loose blocks and finally snap them together to build cohesive individual lessons and multi-week sequences. You simply can't build a strong structure if you don't understand the pieces first. So let's figure out those blocks.
All right, so the absolute golden rule here, the most important distinction you need to make is aims versus procedures. Your aims, those are the why of your lesson. They're your specific learning goals, like what should your students actually be able to do when they walk out the door. Maybe your aim is for them to use comparative adjectives correctly. Now, procedures are completely different. They are the what and the how. It's the actual steps and tasks you do in the classroom to hit that goal, like running a job interview role play. Just remember, never confuse the classroom activity with the ultimate goal.
Now, the aim isn't just one giant idea. It's actually a mix of specific parts, so let's break that down. First up is your main aim, the big primary purpose, like teaching vocabulary to describe people. But to get there, you rely on subsidiary aims, which are the smaller sub-skills you need along the way, like practicing listening for detail. You also have stage aims, which just define the purpose of one specific moment, like a quick warmer just meant to get everyone talking. And hey, don't forget your personal aims. This is about your own development as a teacher. A great personal aim could be something like, today I am going to make absolutely sure my instructions are crystal clear.
But wait, before we even start teaching, we have to lay the groundwork with our background components. These completely dictate what we're about to build. You always start with a class profile. I mean, think about it. Teaching 24 B2 level students who are highly motivated but terrified to speak, that changes your entire approach. Next is timetable fit. How does today link up with yesterday? If you taught people descriptions yesterday, today's lesson should naturally build on that vocabulary. Finally, we have assumptions. What do you assume they already know? Maybe you're betting they've already mastered the present simple so you can safely build off of it. Knowing your audience is everything.
Even with a flawless foundation, real classrooms are totally unpredictable. That's exactly why we need a safety net, which we call anticipated problems and solutions. You have to predict the roadblocks before you hit them. Say you're planning a speaking task for the end of the lesson, but you realize, you know what, they might find this repetitive and zone out. So what's your solution? Instead of having them just repeat their own descriptions, you plan a twist where they report what their partner said to a brand new person. You saw a pothole and you built a bridge right over it.
Once you've got your background and your aims totally locked in, you create the action plan. These are your procedure components, the literal mechanics of how you'll deliver the class. First is the timer. You've got to be strict and allocate exact minutes per stage. Give exactly 10 minutes for that gap fill so you're guaranteed to have enough time for speaking practice later. Then, think about your network of interaction patterns. Are they working silently alone, in pairs, or doing a full class mingle where everyone's up and chatting? Mixing this up is what keeps the energy alive. And lastly, homework, to reinforce everything once they leave the room.
So, moving into Unit 21, let's look at how all this comes together. We've got our Lego blocks sorted, the aims, the profiles, the timing. Now it's time for the assembly. We're shifting gears from defining individual pieces to actually stringing them together into logical lesson shapes that just make sense to your students.
A super classic way to assemble a lesson, especially when you're introducing new grammar, is the PPP approach. Step 1 is presentation. This is where you introduce the new language in a really clear context, maybe using a fun story or some pictures to give it meaning. Step 2 is practice. Here, students do controlled exercises like gap fills just to nail down the correct form. And step 3 is production. This is where the training wheels finally come off. Students use the language freely in a real communicative task, like a role play. It's such a logical, highly effective progression.
But what if you're not teaching grammar? What if it's a reading or listening lesson? Well, that takes a different kind of architecture called the receptive skills sequence, and it flows in 3 phases.
First is the pre-phase, where you set the scene. If you're teaching travel vocabulary, you don't just hand out a text. You show a picture of a crazy busy airport and get them predicting the topic. Then comes the while phase. This is the active input, where they might scan the text for specific dates or listen closely for details. And lastly, the after phase, which is all about getting their reaction and discussing the author's overall opinion.
Now, let's zoom out for a second. Truly great teachers don't just plan one isolated day, they plan schemes of work. This means scaling up your single lessons into a connected journey across a whole week or month, so it isn't just a series of one-off events. For instance, you might introduce basic concepts like the present simple on a Monday. By Wednesday, you logically step it up to harder concepts like the present continuous. And by Friday, you tie it all together with an integrated skills project involving reading, listening, and writing. Notice how that timetable fit comes in here? You save the high-energy collaborative projects for Friday when they might be a bit too burned out for heavy grammar.
To make those long-term sequences actually succeed, you need what I like to call the magic mix. It is all about a delicate balance. You absolutely need variety, mixing up the pace from a quiet listening task to a lively board game so no one gets bored. But you also need predictability. Students crave a bit of routine and makes them feel secure. On top of that, you have to have recycling. Bring yesterday's verbs into today's writing task. And finally, consolidation. This gives your students that crucial extra time to securely lock the new language into their long-term memory.
We've covered some genuinely powerful concepts today. Let's look at our key takeaways to really lock in the most important ideas. First, separate your main goals, your aims, from your actual activities, your procedures. Second, anticipate student problems ahead of time to create a reliable safety net. And third, connect your individual lessons into logical, long-term sequences. Before we wrap up, I want you to take just a moment to reflect. Think about the last lesson you taught. How could today's topic improve your lesson planning? Take a second to mentally apply these architectural concepts to your own real-world classroom.
Congratulations! You have just completed another important TKT lesson. Remember that passing the TKT exam is not about memorizing definitions. It's about understanding how teaching works in real classrooms and becoming a better English teacher.
Now, it's time to put today's lesson into practice. Visit coursos.tower.languages and continue your learning with resources designed especially for English teachers. There you'll find lesson summaries, downloadable teaching resources, exam-style practice, and more. The link is in the description below.
In the next lesson, we will take a close look at choosing assessment activities. Remember, great teachers are made one lesson at a time. See you in the next lesson.